So we have some family members and younger cousins and friends that sometimes they do come to us for advice. And we're always like, look, we don't got to figure it out at all. We're still trying to navigate through life and figure this out. But I think when we do talk to them, what we do provide is just experience, right? Just life experience. And with that, I think that, I mean, if we had somebody like us who
Yeah.
who just would spend time to talk to ourselves when we were younger, I think that would have went a long way. So
And really explain themselves
yeah,
because oftentimes I feel like people would give us advice, but they didn't really have like an explanation for the advice to make it click. And we really do take the time to sit down with them and, truly explain to them like, here's a mistake I made, and
and
here's
why?
here's why it was a
Yeah,
mistake, and here's the route you should take,
yeah.
because it would have been helpful for us.
Yeah, I think that's key, right? Because I think we've all gotten advice from people,
Of
but it
course.
was kind of like blanket advice,
Yeah.
like hang out with the right crowd, make sure you know what you want to do in life. But I think when somebody actually sits down with you and tells you, "This is what I think because this is my experience, and it caused or it led to X, Y, Z," I think it's very helpful. So, what advice would you give specifically to yourself now that we're in our late 30s?
Hmm.
Right? What's some key things you think you would have truly benefited from if you would have somebody would have sat down with you and just really broke it down for you?
Oh, I have so many.
Yeah, me too.
Because I really do wish I did some things different. And I think that one of the ones that were like always is in my face constantly. And I can think of so many different situations I was in my 20s, specifically like with friends, that I just wish I would have done different. And I think the main one is don't dim your light, don't dim it. Like, honestly, don't play small to be more digestible. They can choke.
Did you find yourself playing small with people you were around?
I did a lot. And sometimes I wasn't even proud to like even give this advice because it almost felt like I was like trying to flex on somebody because why is my light so bright? I think everyone's light is bright in their own way,
Some
right?
people just embrace it,
Yeah.
others don't.
And you know what? Now that you say the word embrace, I might have not embraced it in the past because I felt like if I were to, scream out all the great things I've done, or, the things I made it to, or who I was in that moment, I might make somebody feel uncomfortable. So it came from a good
Like
place.
what? Give me an example. I know you always talk about a specific scenario when you
Yeah.
were.
Yeah. So I, back in the day, I want to say like 2010, I think it was 2010, I was a Miami Dolphins cheerleader. And
Hey.
and it took a lot of work to get there. And I'm going to be quite frank. I tried out with no expectations. I didn't think I was going to make an NFL team. Like that's a big deal. But I tried out with a couple of friends, and some of my friends didn't make it. And in that moment, one, I didn't feel all the support I wish I would have felt, but it's tough because those girls wanted to make it too, right? So, because I was understanding of that, I kind of like would be like, oh, it's not that great. Like,
Yeah, you would
the
downplay it.
practice is so hard or it takes up too much time. Um, oh my God, like I would just make it seem like it wasn't a big deal. And the truth is, it is a big deal. There was 2,000 girls who tried out and only 40 people made it. And it was an experience of a lifetime. And oftentimes I don't even highlight that about myself. And I'm glad I'm doing it now because I don't highlight that about myself because I don't want to seem like I'm bragging, but it is what it
Yeah,
is.
it,
Like
it
I made wow, that's like a great, a thing that happened for me.
yeah, and I can imagine it kind of diminished the experience for you because you
Absolutely.
weren't able to fully say, "Man, this is amazing. We got flown out to Dominican Republic. We're doing this. This is amazing." And it is true when you're telling somebody who is really happy for you and they're living through you in that moment, it does make a difference because you
It
enjoy it
does.
more. Something great happens and you want to share it with somebody, and then you find yourself like you don't want to share it with that person or anybody because you feel you you're worried they may feel like you're trying to flex on them, or you're trying to, one up
It's
them.
not even so much on like you're trying to flex on them, but sometimes you just don't want to make somebody feel bad, right?
That's true. Yep.
So you're, because maybe you have a couple things going on in that season of your life, and that person doesn't. Maybe they have a bunch of negative things happening to them in that season of their life. So, leading on to, I would say, advice number two is really like keep an eye on those people that you don't want to tell your good news to.
Yeah, because that literally defeats the whole purpose of
Yeah.
having close relationships.
Yeah, because your relationships are supposed to celebrate you and support you. And we're all different and we're all going on different journeys. But I guess true friendship is those people who, grow with you and watch you grow and congratulate you and truly be happy for you. Because that's really what matters.
Yeah. When I think about giving advice to the younger self, I always think about the few things that kept me up at night or still keep me up at night. Those things, that decisions you made or didn't make when you were younger, and for whatever reason you still think about it and it just sticks with you. So there's one instance that if I can go back in time, I would grab the 22-year-old me and be like, bro, snap out of it. Fresh out of college, I was working at a event marketing company, and it was one of the, now it's probably the largest multicultural event marketing company in the world. At that time, it was growing, and we had some pretty big clients, some big brands, and we had some big sponsorships going. And I was fresh out of an internship with the Marlins marketing department, and I got recommended for this position because they knew each other. So I'm trying to show out, right? I'm showing up to work 30 minutes early.
Yeah, I get that.
They hand me an assignment. I'm doing it right away. And I'm really purposely trying to make a name for myself, which I'm glad I did that during that time. And about 3 months into the job, I was crushing it, right? I was coming up with all these creative ideas. I was creating, sponsorship packages for our clients and these activations. And we got a really big partnership with a global soccer tournament. It was called CONCACAF at the time. And we had one of our biggest clients who wanted to sponsor it. There was a huge activation that the brand enlisted several marketing agencies to come up with the concept of how we were going to move forward. My agency had the best idea. So what they wanted was to bring the heads of all the agencies to meet. I forgot where it was. It might have been Vegas or somewhere on the West Coast, to come and discuss and pitch their ideas to the brand, the brand president, the executives, everybody. So typically from each agency is the head person from each account. I was nowhere near a head person. Like I said, I was just coming off being an intern. I literally at the bottom of the totem pole of a massive, company. But the CEO of my company was going to go, which rightfully so. He's the proper person to go. And he should have taken probably somebody else. He should have taken a director, a VP of the company. But since I had so many ideas, and in the agency, I kind of created a name for myself, they were like, take Marlo.
That's
And it was
it's
big
a big
news,
deal.
right? So when I would walk around the office leading up to it, they're like, I heard you're going to such and such place to, meet with the brand. I was like, yeah, I was hype. I was bringing it up for no reason in the lunch, in the, during break time. I was, hey, I'm going with the CEO to XYZ. And everybody's like, man, that's impressive. So fast forward, they fly me to the city. The CEO goes. The day of the big meeting, he picks me up in car service. So mind you, again, I'm early 20s. I'm excited. I'm with the CEO. We're going to this big meeting, and I'm feeling good at the moment, right? He's like, "How you feeling?" I'm like, "Good." He's like, "Look, when we get in there, I want you to, like, how you are in the office. I want you to lay in on everybody and let them know this is where we stand, this is what we want to do, and that way we'll get a big piece of the pie." I was like, "No doubt, I got this." We get to the meeting. All the heads of all the marketing agencies, and these are some big time marketing agencies because again, it's a big brand. And my boss, the CEO, doesn't sit with me. He sits kind of in the back, and it's two people per agency, and they have one kind of speaking for the group. And we're kind of sitting at a round table, and they start going off, right, on everybody's ideas. And I just feel this. I just get overwhelmed with this, just a massive amount of fear that I've never felt before. I felt like an imposter. In that moment, I was like, what am I doing here? I have no business being here. He shouldn't have picked me. And the more people were talking and like people were going off each other's ideas, the smaller I felt. And the CEO noticed, and he was texting me. He was like, "Hey, start talking, go off, say XYZ." And I would text him back, "Okay." And I wouldn't say anything. And I just stayed
Oh
quiet.
my God.
Yeah. And I felt so, I was shaking. And I don't know why I was so scared. I don't know, scared of judge. And mind you, everybody there is also much older than me. So I was intimidated by, by everything, right? By the whole situation. The meeting wraps up. I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. It was like a 2 hour meeting. I didn't
Oh
suggest
my God.
anything. Mind you, we're also the only multicultural agency in that meeting. Everybody else was, not multicultural. And we get in the car with the CEO, and he was really good friends with the brand president. He got in the car and he was like, "Mello, cut the shit, right? Tell her how you feel." And I said a couple things trying to save face, and I felt so embarrassed for myself, for him, for the company.
So basically, your fear blew it for you in that moment.
My fear completely blew it for me to the point where, with the CEO, I mean, I never got called up again for a big project, and I realized how crippling fear could be, right? Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of success. Who knows what I was scared of at that time, but I became paralyzed, and that scarred me because I think about that till this day.
I totally agree. As you were saying your story about fear, I thought about my younger self as well, where, and funny enough, I've just recently accepted this, but I think back in my 20s when, adulthood started creeping in, I felt like they were like generational curses or chains that I was breaking. I was the first person in my family to graduate college. I was the first in my family for a lot of different things. And to this day, I'm still breaking through, a ton of things that I'm doing different than my family has. And I don't think I accepted that in my 20s. And I think it takes longer to fulfill your calling when you don't accept what you were brought here for. And I feel like I would turn that off. Like, no, again, dimming my light, right? Like, that's not a big deal. That's not who I am. But some of us are called to break generational curses, to break chains. And now, I mean, I wish I would have told this to myself, but now since we're doing advice to your younger self, I would have told my younger self, like, accept it. This is, God chose you to do that. So wake up every day knowing that you have that task at hand. Whatever it may be, however you need to go about it, but don't fear. It goes back to what you were saying. Don't out of fear, don't continue to like put that off. You know,
What negative impact did it have on you by not accepting that at that time?
a ton. And I would say like number one, like even with like religion, I knew that I didn't want to practice the religion that my family practices. And I would go back and forth between, Christianity, which is who I am now, and, whatever religion my family practices out of fear because I felt like, well, that's how I grew up.
You don't want to be
And I don't want to,
excommunicated or
not
excluded?
necessarily excommunicated because my family's really tight and they wouldn't excommunicate me over something like that. But I kind of feared what would happen to me if I didn't practice that
Right.
because not that my parents would do something to me, but like maybe their religion would be upset at me or something. And that's just not who I was or who I am. So oftentimes I would turn to Jesus, who is, that's who I am now. I'm Christian and I'm proud of that. So I just wish I would have accepted that a really long time ago. And not just that I'm Christian or that, but that's, I'm different than my family. And that's okay.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. I think once you start owning who you are,
Absolutely.
the earlier in life, the better off you'll be. Because it takes a while to figure out who you are and what type of person you're going to be and what
Yeah.
you're going to believe in. But once you do figure that out and it feels right, right? Because you could be trying out different things, but once it feels right, embrace it 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you don't, you're going to find yourself regretting it.
Yeah.
which is why we're talking about it now, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the advice we'd give ourselves, and hopefully, maybe this can, help somebody if they're going through a season right now or they're feeling the same thing that maybe we went through. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I would, another thing that I wish I was better at when I was younger was focus, because I drifted a lot. And when I say drift, I mean I went through a lot of different phases of what I wanted to do in life. It's a gift and a curse because I got to try a bunch of different things out. But I didn't really hunker down until much later in life of what I truly wanted to do. So I would tell myself, once you find something that you're interested in, kind of to what we were speaking to earlier, is focus, go all in. Because the people who are successful in any field, most of the time, I mean, of course, it takes skill and talent, but most of the time, they just stayed in it for a long time and they didn't quit.
Yeah.
And with focus, especially in your career,
And persistence.
and persistence. Well, I think with focus, you're going to get persistence naturally because that's what you're zeroed in on. That's going to go a long way, and I think we underestimate that because the problem is, at least for me, and I'm speaking for myself, is when I was younger, I thought I was going to live forever and I was going to be young forever, and I would say I'm going to figure it out at some point. At some point, everything's going to click, everything's going to make sense, and everything's going to fall into place. And then as you get older, you realize that doesn't happen on its own, right? Nothing figures itself out. Nobody saves you.
No,
You have to literally,
nobody is going to save you.
nobody saves you, and you have to make a conscious effort to move in the direction that you want to move in life. And the only way you could do that is with some real focus.
Yeah, I second that. I absolutely. I think the same. I think there's a ton of people who are blessed with knowing early on
Mhm.
like what they're brought here for. So they almost have a cheat code.
Usually, and it's usually athletes, right? Usually athletes know very early on that I have a gift and I'm gonna go, full force with it.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like the people in the beauty industry too.
yeah, because it's you can't hide the gift, right? Because it's
Yeah.
just oozing out of you. But the rest of 99% of us, we have to uncover what our gift is. It's easier for some. Some people are born knowing it off the rip, and some people have to do a lot of work to uncover it.
I always thought that like especially like I was saying about the beauty industry, the girls who are, in their teens and they know how to do makeup early on, it's just they could just dive right into it. People are constantly saying your makeup looks so pretty. So you're right, you can't hide it, right? Um, Definitely focus is a big one.
When I was younger, I hung out with a lot of different kind of people. Good people, bad people, troublemakers. And I think there's a thing, I mean, especially where I grew up in New York. I think when you're younger, you don't really pay attention to the company you keep.
Oof.
And that's something that as you get older, you realize how important it is because not that I ran with the worst kind of crowd, but there was definitely people I should have avoided. And it's a weird thing that the worst kind of people are the coolest when you're younger. They're the
Yeah.
most popular. They're the people who just do all the wrong things or have the worst kind of reputations tend to get the girls, have the most friends, and it's backwards because as you get older in life, those are the people you tend to avoid. And when you see those same people now, they're all kinds of messed up.
Yeah.
So I would tell myself also be very careful with the people that you hang around with.
I think another one for me, an advice I would give myself is learn the difference between a mistake and premeditated behavior,
Yeah.
right? If you want to define a mistake could be maybe somebody slipped up on something that was supposed to be a secret and they truly feel sorry about that, right? That's a mistake. You can forgive that, right? Maybe you let somebody borrow something and they lost it, and that's a mistake, right?
Sure.
You can forgive that. But then there's a specific kind of person who plans to do you harm.
Yeah,
That's something that's premeditated.
and there's some underlining nefarious
Yeah.
intent there to hurt you because sometimes, especially people that you consider friends, do things or
Even
say
family.
things, and family do things to intentionally hurt you just because they feel a certain way
Yeah, about you.
or
And
about themselves.
yeah, and those people, you need to stay away from them, right? I'm not telling you to not have forgiveness in your heart. It's okay to forgive people, but it doesn't mean you need to hang out with them. It doesn't mean you have to be accepting to them being around you. It doesn't mean that they have access to you, right?
I think that's a good one too.
Because you'll live a very very unhappy life if you stay around people that have premeditated horrible behavior, right? Because you'll constantly feel the betrayal. Like, for example, when a friend isn't happy for you, that's not a mistake. That's how they feel. Believe them.
Yeah. Also, I guess kind of ties to that is don't ignore red flags. In friendships, in relationships, red flags are there for a reason. If there's a red flag and you're knocking them down and you're making excuses for a friend, a family member, a spouse, you're probably in the wrong. So the sooner you can start recognizing the red flags and accepting them as red flags, the better off you're going to be. Because I mean, Lord knows that I was the king of ignoring red flags if if I got them, but I was interested in a specific thing or a specific outcome, whether it was a job or whatever. I just steamrolled and went ahead, and then I got burned. And then I wondered, oh, well, why did I get burned? And then when you
Yeah.
do some deep thought, you're like, well, I kind of deserve that because the signs were all there.
Yeah, and then sometimes for whatever reason, and this happened to me growing up too, you see the signs, like he mentioned, red flags, and you kind of like knock them down because you don't want to see them,
Yeah.
right? Which kind of leads into another advice I would give myself is like believe people when they tell you who they are by their actions, not who you hope that they'd be, right? Because if they're constantly, making you feel insignificant, or they lie about you, or they're just not loyal, or like believe them, because if you don't, you're going to be in a toxic friendship, a toxic relationship. It's just learn how to love yourself enough to say, okay, well, this person used to have access to me, they're not going to anymore because I don't deserve that. So I think that's a big one for me too.
This one's important. Choose your spouse carefully.
Oof.
Who you
Absolutely.
spend the rest of your life with matters so much.
I think is probably the biggest decision of your life. And I say that because who your spouse is probably going to be the father or mother of your children, who you're going to share what you love most. Who your spouse is who you're going to go on vacation with. Who your spouse is who you're going to unite your financial situation with. Your spouse becomes literally your other half. Like it's a real thing. That's why the saying is there.
Yeah.
So that's a huge one.
Because the lust or the infatuation part in the beginning fades.
Yeah.
Once that fades, it's the real person that you're going to be dealing with. And all those little things that you ignored when you were in the infatuation phase, that starts getting amplified. When somebody has certain shortcomings that are non negotiables for you, people don't change.
Yeah.
I always say that people don't change. People evolve and they grow a little bit, but for the majority, most people they are who they are for their entire life. So if
Absolutely.
somebody is a person who is bad with money or they're unmotivated to, better themselves, if they're a liar, if they're a thief, if they're a cheater, you are who you are.
Yeah.
And you got to be very conscious of who you choose to spend the rest of your life with. That's something that I know that by the time me and you got together, we were very well aware of that.
Yeah.
I think when we
Absolutely.
were younger, we both chose people who were absolutely terrible for us. Um, and it's fine. You kind of have to go through those phases.
I think it's important to go through those
But
phases
we could have
because
eliminated a few of those.
a
We could
hundred
have
percent.
skipped over a few of those, and knowing that is it would have been. I mean, it would have been key.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been key. But I think that all those wrong people that didn't, match for us at that time are probably the reason why we knew so soon that
Yeah.
this was it.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not only about checking boxes, which I'm not a big on checking boxes. Me, I care more about overall. What's your outlook on life?
Yeah, what are your values?
What do you believe in?
And what's your heart?
Yeah, all that matters more and more the older you get, and the older you get, and the closer you are to your 40s and 30s, you start thinking about that.
Yeah.
And if you could start thinking about that a little bit earlier, I think it will help you get on track a lot sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the biggest things too is, know someone's heart, because I think one of the most attractive things anyone can have, and that my husband has for sure, is that
Yeah.
he's a good person. And good people, I'm not saying they're hard to find. There's a ton of good people out there, right? But not everyone has the best of intentions. And it's not just about who that person is to you. You want to watch who that person is with other people, because it shows who they really are
And how they make you feel and how they make other people feel.
and how they make feel the people that you love, right? Because I think that it's important that you care so much about your spouse, or that you love them so much that you want to make sure that whatever or whoever that they love also feels, loved.
Absolutely. And I mean, we know a lot of people that they throw caution to the wind when selecting their spouse. And that is burned them time and time again. So,
Yeah,
um,
they're setting themselves up for an unhappy life.
or just a life of constant turmoil and struggle. Because look, in life, like you said, nothing's easy, everything's hard. You're going to have battles no matter what. So, the ones that are in your control, like who you can choose to spend your life with, make that, put a lot of effort and thought into that decision. Don't just do it because you're vibing with that person in the moment, because that goes away.
Yeah, it definitely goes away. And I think that that's what people are after for a long time. I have friends who are single, and a lot of time when I hear them speak, they say things like, they need to have X, Y, Z, they have this long laundry list of like the perfect person. You're not really gonna find that. Like that doesn't there's a perfect person for you, but there isn't like this imaginary perfect person that, checks off all these boxes that don't even really like count. Like that
Yeah.
does I think another thing for me is in life, we all win some and we all lose some, right? And when you have a loss, I look at it as a holding place for a victory. It wasn't what you wanted at the moment, but it's because something more important is coming along, right? Never feel defeated. Like, it's okay. You're not going to win every single time. You're going to win all the times that are are yours.
Here's one I wish I would have gave myself advice maybe 5 years ago is don't hold grudges, right? It's if you're going to remove somebody from your life because they're toxic or they're not good for you, then do that. If you are holding a grudge with somebody that you may eventually, make peace with, just make peace with them. I had a situation back in 2020 where my older brother and I got into a massive fight, a huge fight, probably the biggest fight me and him have ever got into. And mind you, my brother and I, we've had a great relationship pretty much our entire lives. He did beat me up when I was a kid, but that's normal, right? For any big brother, little brother situation. But we got into a really, really nasty fight where, I mean, I saw a side of him I've never seen before. And in that situation, I felt like he was in the wrong. And he was in the wrong. And I didn't do anything to better the situation. And I would talk to other family members like, this guy's completely in the wrong. I'm not going to talk to him until he owns up to it, because he never owns up to his mistakes. And I had that stance for so long. And I convinced myself I don't need to have my brother in my life. I was like, until he figures it out, I'm good off of him. And that went on for 4 years.
It went on for too long.
It went on for 4 years. And in the beginning of it, when I was talking to my cousins, I would, I was coming from an angry place. I'm like, well, he needs to shape up and take ownership. In the back of my mind, I'm like, he will, he will, he'll come around. And 6 months went by, a year went by, 2 years went by. It kind of got worse after a while. And I know it affected him tremendously. It affected me. It affected our parents. Our parents knew that we were fighting and we weren't speaking to each other.
It even affected me because we have kids and I really wanted our children to have their uncle in their
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. It's my brother's only nieces,
Yeah.
So it was nobody won in that situation. Nobody gained. And as time went on, that anger I had towards him started to fade because I just started putting myself in his shoes and seeing things from his point of view. And the more I did that, this was at the end of 2023, right? At the end of
Yeah.
2023. At the end of 2023, I started praying about it. I started asking for guidance. I started trying to look in, within to see, how do I handle the situation? I don't want to be at odds with my brother. I want my daughters to have an uncle, that cares about him. And my brother, from what I heard, he was crazy about the kids. He wanted to hang out with them and see
Yeah.
them, but we weren't even speaking. We weren't on zero speaking terms. And one day, I didn't tell anybody. Mind you, the whole family knew about this. My aunts, my uncles, my parents, and it was just bad. One day, I just called him, and he answered the phone, and he was, I think, in the middle of getting his hair braided or getting a haircut or something. And I said, "Look, bro, I'm over it. Let's just move forward. Like what happened is in the past. I don't even feel a certain way about you anymore, and I hate that we took this long. And I just want to make peace." And his voice was raspy. He's like, "Bro, this I've been thinking about this for so long. I've been wanting to do this for so long. Like, I'm so glad you called."
Yeah.
And then ever since that day, we've been talking every single day. We've been hanging out, and I feel like I have a brother again. And if you talk to him, he'll feel the same way. Like he feel like he wanted he got a brother again because it probably made us closer now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you missed each other so much, and you're like, there's something missing, so you never want that to be missing again.
Yeah, and it all came from ego on both parts. It came from, well, sometimes you want to hold people accountable, and you should hold people accountable, but
I do that a lot.
it's a case by case basis, right? And we're talking about your brother, and if you're talking about the actual situation and you're actually looking at it from an unbiased lens, you can start opening your heart and saying, you know what, I actually understand where he's coming from. Not that it was right, but I can see why the argument went down the route it went.
Yeah.
So if I would have if I can talk to myself back in the year 2020 and all my cousins were telling me, hey, he's not going to do it. You just need to be the bigger man and do it. I was like, not a chance. I would go back and within a week, I would just call him up, squash it, and just move on. Because you know what happened during that time? During the time that we weren't speaking, it was COVID, right? My mother's boyfriend at the time passed away.
Yeah.
My mother went through a whole bunch of issues with him, with that guy and his family, and losing the house. And all this time, me and my brother were not communicating.
No, and even, in addition to that, we had Ava.
We had Ava.
She had birthdays. We got pregnant with Aria. We had a gender
We
reveal.
bought a house.
We bought a house.
So many
So many things
major
happen
life moments.
that you weren't able to celebrate with him. That you're right. It's just in the moment, it just felt like you had to hold on to,
Yeah,
holding him accountable. But I don't think it was worth, the 4 years of missing out
it
on so many
definitely, no,
things.
the 4 years definitely wasn't worth it. And if I can go back in time, I would 100% go back and say, you know what, bro, we were both out of line. Let's chalk it up and let's keep this going, because at the end of the day, your mother's your mother, your father's your father, your brother's your brother, and if you want them in your life, you gotta move past certain fights and arguments.
Yeah. And I think also, and I think I said this before, what happened between him and his brother, it was something about the heat in the moment and a mistake, right? Something that you can look past. But what I had said earlier about like to be careful with premeditated behavior, it depends what it is that happened. What happened with Mello and his brother was something that's super forgivable. It could have been forgivable only within a day or a week
Hmm.
or whenever they cooled down. If it's something much bigger, I would totally
Yeah, there was
understand.
no ill intent
Yeah,
in there. It
correct.
was more of a spontaneous reaction, and it was a blow up after another blow up, and then I can't believe you did that, and I can't believe you did that, and it just got real nasty real fast. And then two grown men ego got in place, and it was just bad. And I'm embarrassed by it from the
You
family
shouldn't be
because the whole
embarrassed.
family knew about it. And you know what's crazy? You know how you were talking about red flags? When you know that there's a red flag, you ignore it. Also, when you're holding on to a situation, you know it's wrong, you also feel it. Because when I was around family members and even aunts and uncles, and they would bring it up, I just felt icky about it.
Yeah.
It never felt good. And when I would have these events with, Ava's birthday party or baby shower, all my friends know my brother. Like, oh, where's your brother? And I would make an excuse as to why he's. I didn't tell anybody that,
Yeah.
brother. I think one of my friends knew, Ava's godfather knew that I was fighting with my brother. Besides my family, none of my friends knew.
Yeah.
And I find myself making excuses for it. And I'm like, this is just silly.
Yeah. Yeah, you just know.
You know what your body tells you when you're in the wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't hold grudges, young Mellow.
Don't hold unnecessary grudges. Well, yeah, don't hold grudges at all, but just
Well, because if
have the discernment to
because
know.
yeah, if somebody like what you're talking about, if somebody has premeditated ill intent, then that's not a grudge. You're gonna cut them off, and there's no grudge
Yeah,
there, right? It's different.
correct. Correct.
Grudge is with somebody that you shouldn't have a grudge with.
Yeah, grudge against.
It's against, yeah, it's a misunderstanding, it's a fight, and you should move on from it.
Yeah.
That's actually happened a few times in my life with friends where I wish I can go back and say, you know what, man, this is stupid.
Yeah.
A lot of times ego, I feel like they're in the wrong. They probably feel I'm in the wrong. And again, nobody wins.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody wins. Another really big one for me is don't take advice from people who are not where you want to be. I feel like people sometimes just give out unsolicited advice or don't, don't even have enough experience about what they're talking about. And they're just giving out advice as if, can they take it themselves? Like, can they take their own advice? So if someone's not where you want to be, or you don't have some type of, respect for who they are because of what they've created or what they've done, don't listen to them.
I think I agree with you. I think there's something you can learn from everybody, right? There's something you can learn, but I think what you're trying to say is if somebody's trying to give you advice on how to make the Dolphins team, but they've never made a sports team or whatever,
I
don't listen
guess.
to their advice. But they could probably give you advice on how to cook a pie, right?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? I think,
Yeah, but I think that those things are, you know, I'm talking about like the bigger picture things, right? Like, say that you chose a career and they're telling you, you shouldn't choose that career. You should do something else. Like, that's going to make a difference in your life. And if that person's not in the career that you'd like, or has the type of life that you'd want, why would you take their advice? You
yeah,
know?
no, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Like if it's specific to if you're trying to achieve something. For example, if somebody's trying to give you advice on who to date, but they have terrible
Oh
relationships,
yeah, that's another one.
you don't want to listen to them, right? And sometimes people go to their friends to get advice on something that they shouldn't be going to that specific friend for that advice.
Yeah, like if you're married, don't go to a single friend to talk about your marital situations, or like don't talk to anyone, period, about it, but talk
Yeah.
to your spouse. But if you wanted to vent to somebody, you want to go vent to someone who has a healthy marriage,
Yeah.
because if they don't, they're not gonna. It's not that they're doing it with malice or anything. Is that they're not gonna even know how to guide you.
Yeah, agreed. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're the one that asks them for advice, and you shouldn't be asking
Yeah.
that person for the
Yeah,
advice.
you shouldn't. That's the thing that like I sometimes they feel like they can give it because you're the one asking them, but maybe you should just I guess the advice from me is choose wisely who you ask advice from.
Yeah, agreed.
I think one of the biggest things I would also tell my younger self is when a friend is coming to you for advice or is coming to you with a
Mm,
situation that happened to them, or they're sad about something, pause really quickly once they're done venting and ask them, do you want my advice or do you just want me to hear you out? Because one of the easiest ways to lose friends is always inputting what your thoughts and opinions are about something that they might be going through. And you don't realize that in that moment, they might be feeling judged.
yeah.
So it's important to, be aware and ask, like, or first, I'm so sorry you're going through X, Y, and Z.
Empathy.
And then ask them, like, do you want my honest opinion or do you just want me to hear you out? I'm here for both if you're a good friend.
Yeah. You want my two
Yeah.
cents, or you just want to hear me out? Yeah.
And
Just
then
be
also
straightforward.
be a little careful too when they do tell you, like, oh, well, give it to me raw, give it to me real.
Mm,
What is your advice? Be careful who's asking for that, because some people might just say that because, they just in that moment they want to hear advice, but then later, once you do give it to them raw and give it to them how it is that you really thought, they're probably going to feel offended, and then they probably won't tell you about it, but they won't tell you about it, but they'll probably resent you later.
you got to have high emotional intelligence
Yeah.
and be aware of that. That's good. Thank you for watching.